Welcome to yet another episode on our channel, our beloved channel, MotoMouths, where we talk about engines, we talk about driving, we talk about the whole experience that comes with cars, and to a large extent, movement or transport. Today we have an interesting topic about the performance of SUVs. SUVs are a type of cars that has become very popular over the years. And our resident engineer will explain to us what SUV stands for and probably delve into why they have become popular. Then we can dive into the debate on their performance, because being the most popular segment of cars, definitely there is a lot of conversation on which one is better, which one is faster, which one is more powerful. Around here, we even made it a gender. We call them a motoken sajja.
Hey.
So I am looking forward to this conversation and what justifies that gender of the car. Thank you. Welcome, Engineer Ivan Chibuka. Please take it away.
Yes. Good afternoon, Alan, fellow MotoMouth, and good afternoon, everyone else. My name is Ivan Chibuka. As usual, we get straight to business. We aim to demystify some common automotive myths, and one of them is that all SUVs perform well on the road. There have been so many arguments, some mboza kumalwa, some reasonable arguments for and against. But yeah, I'm going to delve into the topic, but the quick answer is that not all SUVs perform well off-road. The off-road capability for any vehicle depends on its design, features, and the intended use. So if it is an SUV, while many of them are marketed for versatility, the ability to move from one kind of terrain to the other, that's what the versatility that I'm talking about. Some are more suited for paved roads than rugged terrain. Yeah, but what really differentiates off-road capable SUVs from those that aren't? Just between, come again?
Yes, before you proceed, I think for the benefit of our viewers,
Yeah.
I think you should have started with what an SUV is and maybe some examples for people to understand what we are talking about.
Yes, okay. Thank you for that correction. SUVs, the SUV means it's a short form of sports utility vehicle.
Yes.
They are, I don't know where the sport acronym comes from. Maybe it comes from the fact that they are used for sporting activities. I'm not very sure about that. But it's taken to be that they are more powerful, more agile, more sporty vehicles that are supposed to be a class or two above normal family sedans or small hatchbacks. So they ideally should be four-wheel drive. In fact, the early SUVs, most of them were four-wheel drive. Just between you and me, I drive an SUV, but between you and me, it's can you imagine it's a two-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, not very different from a family saloon. So sports utility vehicle is supposed to be a vehicle that will drive both on what you'd call normal road and also off-road. Off-road, most people think off-road is when you go on a bad Maram road with potholes and that and all that. Mm-mm. Off-road is when, like it says, off-road. You go off the road, like you go into the bush. Now, um, you now start to see that not all SUVs are off-road vehicles. I don't know if I've tried to describe what an SUV is supposed to be. If you feel that I'm not doing a good job, it's simply because the definition of an SUV is kind of confusing depending on who is talking about the SUV. It's not clear cut. They are
Maybe
usually
some
they usually look like most SUVs look like bigger estates, like a small family estate, but bigger and taller. Generally, those are considered SUVs. But now we are about to dissect the capabilities. You wanted to say something?
some examples for our viewers to know what type of cars.
Oh, yeah, I was about to come to that later on. But examples of SUVs: Toyota RAV4, um, Toyota Harrier, it's the RX, it's the Lexus RX 300 or 330 in some countries. Um, Volkswagen Tiguan, Volkswagen Touareg, Audi Q7, Audi Q5. Um, I'm not sure the BMW X6 falls in that category. It may, it's a large car, but it looks bigger than a normal SUV. But BMW X3, X5, generally the X group, I would say. If the name begins with the X on the BMW, I think it is an SUV. Land Rover, Defender, Freelander, you can tell they are SUVs, but the sizes are different. If we go to Nissan, you are looking at the Patrol, you are looking at the X-Trail, you are looking at the Terra, not very common here, but I've seen a few on our roads, but they are very common in North America. Mercedes, you'd find the Mercedes ML class, GL class. Um, then if you go to which other common brand haven't I mentioned? The Honda. In a Honda, you'd find the CR-V, and there's even the smaller HR-V. I think it's also considered an SUV. HR-V is smaller than the CR-V. Any other common brands that I haven't thought about?
Uh, maybe okay. You've mentioned Audi, you've mentioned Mercedes, you've mentioned the Toyota.
Yeah,
Uh,
the Mazdas have funny names. CX-7, CX. I have not yet mastered them. I see
yeah, I
them,
see them there.
especially on Kenyan roads. They are very common.
Yeah, they are.
But I think our viewers are generally getting the picture.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
So
the first car besides the Land Rover,
mm,
the first car that made the SUVs to be popular around here was the Mitsubishi Pajero.
Mitsubishis, you have the Pajero. Sometimes it's called the Shogun, especially if it is meant for the European market.
Mm.
By the way, the reason for that, the reason why it's called the Shogun, I found that out when I was living in the UK. The reason why it's called the Shogun and not the Pajero in Europe is in Spanish, the word Pajero is a bad word. So that's why they call it the Shogun in Europe. In America, they call it something else. I've forgotten. They have it in America, but they call it something else. It's not Pajero, and I think it's not Shogun. I forget what they call it. There are some Kia models. like the Sorrento. That one is also an SUV. I think our viewers are now getting a good picture of what an SUV, what is considered an SUV.
You've not touched on the American brands because they are
Oh, you
not
have,
so popular, but there are so many SUVs.
yeah, you have the Ford Bronco. By the way, the Ford Bronco, they have made a new one. I saw it in America. It's becoming common. There is an old Ford Bronco, the one you remember. You remember that episode when they chased O.J. Simpson. That was the old model. For some reason, Ford stopped making it, but now it is back. They have a new version of it. The Ford Escape, the Ford Expedition. There is even a Ford. There's one which is similar to the Expedition. I may remember the name later. Then you have the Jeeps, Rubicon. No, the Rubicon is, I think, a pickup. It's a double cabin. It looks like
There is also one that there is also a Rubicon that is an SUV, the one that is like a rugged Jeep.
Okay. Most of the Rubicons I've seen in North America were trucks. Yeah,
Uh,
I first saw the Rubicons when I went to the auto show in Philadelphia, I think in 2018. I was confused whether the Rubicon is a double cabin or an SUV. Okay, yeah. And then you have the Jeep Cherokee, you have, uh, there are so many Jeep
yeah.
Cherokee versions. There's a Grand Cherokee, the Cherokee, just Cherokee. And then which other American brand haven't I touched? I've touched Chrysler's, I've touched Ford. General
You
Motors, you have
have
Hammer, you have,
Escalade.
yes, Escalade, and then you have, no, Cadillac. Cadillac is, I think,
Cadillac.
Cadillac is an upmarket version of, is it an upmarket version of the Ford or General Motors? I think General Motors. You
Mm,
know, some of those brands, like when you hear Cadillac, it's not like it's a separate brand. It's like how you see Toyota and Lexus. For the
yes.
American market, they segment, for the American and European market, you may find they segment Toyotas into Lexus and Toyota
Mm,
just to compete with the Mercedes and Audis. And then you have Nissan also has the Infinity. That is the higher grade. An Infinity is the
mm,
higher grade Nissan. And then Hondas also have Acura,
yes, yes.
the Acura group. And then you have, I think Kia has also gone and done the same thing. Is it Kia or Hyundai? One of the two is producing a higher grade brand called the Genesis. Very luxurious. I've sat in one. Ha. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a nice car.
Mm,
A friend drove me to the airport in Boston in a Genesis. I think it's a 2012 model. He could even take his hands off the steering wheel on the highway, and the vehicle would steer itself and keep I think it is called something cruise.
cruise control.
Yeah, cruise control is normally where you keep control of the steering, but you are not controlling the pedals anymore, the gas pedal. This rudder control where you even take the hands off that one, it can steer by itself. It can also change gears and keep up speed or slow down depending on the traffic in front of you. I wasn't
Mm,
comfortable with it. I told him, I've seen, after a few seconds, I told him, it's okay, I've seen it can do it. Just keep your hands on the wheel. He told me it also took him some time to trust it.
mm,
Yeah, initially when he got it. Yeah, so I think we've got a good idea of what SUVs look like.
mm.
Um, up,
I am not happy with the fact that you have forgotten my favorite brand, the Volvo.
Volvo, anything with XC,
Yes.
XC70, XC90, X60. And I'm also, I don't even know how I forgot that because I'm also a fan of Volvo. My first car was a Volvo. It wasn't an SUV, but it was a Volvo 440. It was my first car. My first car was in the UK. I had been driving in Uganda, but was driving my mom's car. But my first own car was a Volvo, so I have an attachment to Volvo. So I sorry for forgetting that. Yeah, so we now that we've got some examples, we cannot exhaust all of them, but I think you've now got an idea of what an SUV should be like. They have different capabilities, but the key features for off-roading, um, four-wheel drive, and all-wheel drive. Now, four-wheel drive, 4WD, sometimes you find 4WD written on the back of cars. They kind of seem to be the same thing from the perspective that all the wheels can turn, all the four wheels can be powered by the engine, but they are not the same thing. Four-wheel drive systems typically have a low-range gearing option, which is ideal for challenging off-road conditions like mud, sand, or steep inclines, going over rocks and all that. That's why I said off-road means what it says, off-road. I've been, I don't want to say lucky or rather unlucky. I've sometimes in my, especially in my line of work, I've had the need to go really go off road, like in the real bush with driving through grass taller than the vehicle itself. You cannot even see where you are going. Sometimes we run into rocks and things like that. So that is where most SUVs would not cope with that. You need a proper four-wheel drive vehicle for that, a proper off-roading vehicle. So four-wheel drive systems normally come with that low-range gearing option, where you engage four-wheel drive, and then it will do normal four-wheel driving, as in all the wheels will turn. But if one wheel gets stuck, all the other wheels will stop. But when you have the low range option, it removes that disability that comes with one wheel hanging or slipping and the other wheels failing to turn. So when you put low range, the low range is you can only engage that low range at first of all you have to stop, and when you drive you can feel the force in the vehicle. You cannot go very fast. In fact, you cannot drive beyond like second gear. The car becomes a very different animal. Even just turning becomes a big job. The vehicle changes a lot when you engage the low range gearing, and usually you do that manually. You also have to stop and disengage it. All-wheel drive provides better traction, but is typically less capable in extreme off-road conditions. Now, most SUVs that can have all the wheels turning, I don't want to call it four-wheel drive. Most SUVs actually have all-wheel drive, and on some vehicles it is optional, on other vehicles it is full-time, and then increasingly in the last 10 years, there is a lot of computer gimmickry involved. The vehicle decides for itself to engage it and to disengage it, and how to share the power between the wheels. Like the BMWs, the X3, X5, you don't have an option for turning four-wheel drive on and off, all-wheel drive on and off. No, the computer makes all those decisions itself. In some models like the X-Trail, it can let you decide whether to engage it manually or to let it do it automatically. Toyotas have also generally gone that direction, but four-wheel drive Toyotas, you still have to engage the four-wheel drive manually, especially the low-range option, either through a lever or, like most recent models, have a switch of sorts. Personally, I'm old school. I prefer the lever. Ngiwulira ng'eyingidde nti good, eyingidde enywedde. But these switches, sometimes you don't even know whether I think until you you start driving, you cannot tell whether it has really done it. But usually they have lights to confirm or to warn you of errors on the dashboard. So a proper off-road vehicle, a proper four-wheel drive vehicle should have higher ground clearance, which allows the vehicle to navigate over rocks, logs, uneven terrain without damaging the bottom of the car, the undercarriage. And usually, SUVs are designed for proper off-roading. They have 8 to 10 inches or even a foot of ground clearance, as in you can have a whole foot between the ground and the bottom of the car. Of course, the wheels touch the car, but once the vehicle is standing on its wheels, usually they have up to almost a foot of ground clearance. So most SUVs you can tell have clearance of only half a foot or something. So that's not real off-road driving, not a car meant for real off-road conditions. And then there are suspensions. Proper four-wheel drive vehicles have specialized off-road suspension systems. You see a lot of these in North America and Australia. What we have here, most times, the suspension, the SUVs we have here come with standard suspension. And if you observe the suspension that they have in North America and Australia, and some parts of, I think, Russia and those countries near Russia, they also do some serious off-roading. Yeah, if you look at the suspension system they put on those cars, the ones on the SUVs we have here are quite a joke. So it's good. I know it's a good feel factor when you drive an SUV and you think your car is masculine. Ngabo wagambye. Visita motoka nsajja. But the truth is they can get stuck. Like I told you, I drive what is supposed to be an SUV. Between you and me, it has only front-wheel drive. It doesn't even have all-wheel drive. So they've made the SUVs that cheap. It looks like, it looks taller compared to saloons around it. But in reality, when it comes to off-roading conditions, I would, if a Primo decides not to go, I also decide not to go. Yeah. So proper SUVs have specialized off-road suspension systems like independent or long travel suspension, and they improve wheel articulation and handling. Some of the luxurious SUVs, like the Mercedes GL, the Audi Q7, even the Toyota Land Cruiser, the Pencon. Forget about the Prado. I think even some Prados, the newer, I think from the Ronaldo to the Kawase models, yeah, some of them have systems for changing the height, the ride height. When you drive faster, the suspension lowers. When you are driving slower, the suspension comes to the medium position. When you go into a rough road and it detects you are going through potholes, it goes up even higher, maybe an inch or two. Yeah, but that's mostly to do with the comfort and to avoid. The reason why it lowers itself as you are driving faster on the highway is to lower the center of gravity so the car becomes more stable. And for those of you who increase the height of your vehicles, even if you increase the height of your vehicle by just 1 inch, avoid going beyond the speed limit. Going above 120, your car really becomes unstable. Even increasing its height by just 1 inch. 1 inch looks small to you, but the people who make the cars have done a lot of research. There is a reason why they try to keep your car riding lower and lower. It's for safety. So that's why some of you vehicles overturn and you wonder what happened. You think you are dodging a small pothole and you lost control. Yeah, it could be because you put those, what they call spacers. The 1 inch spacer can make the difference between you overcoming that swerving or ending up in the ditch. Please take note. I'm not saying don't put spacers. With Ugandan roads, most of us need it. But what I'm saying is once you increase the height of your vehicle, just don't, if you normally drive 100 kilometers an hour, reduce your speed to 70 or 80 because your car is now inherently more unstable. You don't know it yet until you get into the emergency. And then you may either be shocked or surprised, or you may not come back even to tell us about it. And when it comes to tires, off-road capable SUVs are equipped with usually they are equipped with all-terrain or mud terrain tires for better traction and durability in rugged environments. Some vehicles, some of them even have underbelly protection. They have skid plates to protect vehicle components such as the engine, the transmission, and the fuel tank from damage. Some SUVs like the Nissan Patrol, some of the Land Cruiser, they even have two fuel tanks. One under the passenger seat, one in the cargo in the boot, what you call the boot. And then the approach, departure, and breakover angles for when they are turning, avoiding obstacles are kind of very different between the proper SUVs and the common SUVs that we have. And then they, of course, like I said, they have locking differentials where you lock the differential, especially when you have engaged the low range gearing. And this improves traction by ensuring that power is evenly distributed to all wheels. Then you have hill descent control. Some of them come with it now. The computer takes over when you are going downhill to make sure you don't go too fast. And then it assists with controlled descents on steep slopes. Then you have off-road modes. Like I said, some SUVs have selectable terrain management system for mud, snow, sand, or rocks. Many of them have that feature now, even the Nissan X-Trail, the Toyota Prados, all those. Yeah, so types of off-road vehicles, the examples of the real off-road vehicles are the Jeep Wrangler, the Toyota Land Cruiser, the Ford Bronco, Land Rover Defender. They are designed specifically for rugged conditions with robust off-road capabilities. Crossover SUVs, like the one I have, which is a Renault, it's a Renault Duster. But other examples are the Toyota RAV4, Honda CR-V, Kia Sportage, and others that we talked about before. They are built on car-like platforms. These are more comfortable on paved roads and light off-road use, such as gravel path or snow. Basically, when you go to visit your children at school, you can drive in the compound, and that's fine. But so can most saloons can do that, can manage that either. And then there are luxury SUVs. Examples of these are the BMW X5, the Audi Q7, Mercedes GLE, and others that we talked about earlier. And then these focus on comfort and technology rather than off-road prowess, although some may have limited off-road features. If you are looking for an SUV that performs well off-road, focus on models specifically built with off-road capabilities, and they are not cheap. Many used SUVs, especially crossovers, are primarily designed for urban and highway driving, like the one I have, and may struggle in challenging terrains. I already admitted that for mine. And they always consider the terrain you encounter and the SUV specific features before making a choice, because there's no reason, if you are going to be driving in Kampala, there is no real reason for you to buy a Mpenkoni. Well, you may, it's because you can afford it, but technically there's no real reason. And a RAV4 is enough to manage the Kampala potholes. So, because many of these don't lock differentials and are four-wheel drive, like mine. It's a four-wheel drive. It's a front-wheel drive, not four-wheel drive. Front-wheel drive, the rear axle, the wheels on the rear axle don't get traction. They just follow the front wheels, just like a normal saloon. Even small cars use electronics assistance systems to aid traction, and I already mentioned that. We've run short on time. I think we have only 5 minutes left. I don't know if you have any comments or any other comments or questions regarding that.
My comment would be on the off-road uh, feature.
Mm,
Looking at most of the roads we have, we end up having a few roads and a lot of off-road. Someone tells you, when you are done, you drop me in Kungu or Chanja,
and,
then
and,
you go somewhere
and,
and
and you,
the
you want
road
to
going,
hire Uber for them beyond a certain
yes,
point.
the road going into the estate is almost non-existent because of the erosion. The gullies are there. Actually, one time my brother told me he lives in Bulindo, so he said the roads around here
Mm,
require an off-road car because they are mostly in the CBD. Once you branch off, you're going to have to need a car that has high clearance. He was
mm.
justifying what.
I think that's why it explains why a lot of people have bought SUVs. Usually we buy second-hand cars here, used vehicles. So even buying an SUV, a used SUV is a hassle. They are not cheap. We would all prefer. In the past, the saloons were more. In the days when we were still children, most of our parents did not have SUVs. They had normal saloon cars, but they would still manage to drive them on Maram roads going to the village. But roads nowadays, by the way, do you notice that the roads in DK, Greater Kampala metropolitan area, the roads going into the various estates are so terrible compared to the roads in the village. You are better off going to the village, up country, than driving in the areas out of the CBD. We have very, very terrible roads. So I understand it totally when more and more people buy SUVs. It's very understandable because when you drive, I had a Mercedes W204. I think it was a 2010 C-Class, a saloon. Oh my God, very wonderful, very lovely when the road was good, very powerful. It could leave every other car in the dust. But whenever I would branch off to go home, from the main road to get to my gate, I would have to be very humble. Sometimes I'd even come out to first arrange some stones for the vehicle to pass. It's quite terrible. So it's very and after that, of course, I went back to driving SUVs. I was like, yeah, cars, I don't think I can manage. They look and are reasonably priced. They look good, but small cars, yeah, they're not, especially if you live 10, 15 kilometers out of Kampala. Chances are you are going to need an SUV to get out of your gate and back in. So you are
Sometimes
right.
even when you are within the good roads, our people who make roads are so obsessed with humps that there are places where you find the hump makes it almost impossible.
I understand, but also we also have a habit of overloading those small saloons. So we even lose whatever ground clearance is left.
One time, I think we were moving from, is it Soroti to Lira?
Mm,
There is a city that has very huge humps.
mm.
Because we were actually in a big car, we were in a Ford, but we could feel how big the humps were. So
It's
I
like
talked
going
to,
up a small hill on the road.
yes, an engineer, and he said there had been so many deaths of school children crossing because people
Yeah,
were
but
speeding.
now death can come from people hitting those humps like that. The best humps I think I've seen in the country are those humps in Katwe. The road is now old, but those humps in Katwe are reasonable. They don't break the car, but they also slow you down. They do the job without breaking the car, and they are also not uncomfortable. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you very much. We've run out of time. Yeah, thank you for inviting me for this conversation. I
Thank
hope
you
you've
too.
got some useful information out of it.
A lot of information.
Okay, have a good day.